Oh, yeah, we're back. Welcome back to On to the Next Thing. I'm Michael, your host. Today is September 28th. This is episode 21, and I'm happy to say that I've finally canceled my Shudder subscription. Woo! Hell yeah. Yeah, Shudder's done. But it took some doing because as a horror movie completionist, I felt obligated to finish a bunch of the movies that I had on my watch list because in Shudder they set up with your account you can set up movies on a watch list to let to remind you of which movies you wanted to watch in the future. I had three, got through the three, added at least another three, and then finally finished all of those in the past week. Then, in my exhaustion, I had to record another super awesome episode for episode 20. That one had a guest. This will not have a guest. But some people don't care for the guests. At least that's what I've heard anecdotally for other podcasts. Some people like a solo monologue that they can just listen to, like a meditation recording or something like that. This is kind of like that. But yeah, I had to basically record episode 20 kind of last minute and then get that edited and uploaded before I had to take a rather urgent trip out to the one of the coasts. And there's only two. Well, actually, that's not true at all. Technically there's like four if you want to go by cardinal directions. But whatever. The point is I had to take a big trip and I couldn't record from a shitty motel room in Southern California. So, yeah, wasn't able to do that. But but I was able to finish all of those crappy movies from Shudder. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. But before I do that, we're getting right into bird news. I've been meaning to record music for this podcast for an intro, at least. Bird news has its audio cue, but been meaning to either record or require a good intro. So, if you have any music samples that you'd want me to perhaps apply to this podcast, we can negotiate some pricing if you just want to reach out to the email. Anyway, here's bird news. Tiny bird from Asia makes first ever California appearance on Google campus, draws crowds. This is from SFIST, SFIST. I don't know what that is. It sounds like probably some sort of scientific related publication. But yeah, so this is tiny bird from Asia makes first ever California appearance on Google campus, draws crowds. The dark-sided flycatcher, a small brown bird from Asia, made its California debut last week when it veered off route and spent 3 days at the nature preserve behind Google's Mountain View campus, attracting birding enthusiasts from across the country. Pause. Number one, I think I knew this in my brain, but I didn't realize that Google's Google's business centers, or I guess it's centers where maybe they're doing a lot of the computer science innovation and stuff like that, called campuses. That's a little bit strange. And also that they get a Mountain View campus. And I'd like to visit there, but I probably won't because I don't work at Google and I don't plan to. So just a little bit of an aside, didn't really know they had that. As the Mountain View Voice reports, okay, I guess maybe the place is called Mountain View. All right. As the Mountain View Voice reports, a couple of birders first spotted the flycatcher the morning of Wednesday, September 17th, at Charleston Retention Basin, a 6-acre marsh and nature trail that runs adjacent to Google's campus. The outlet reports that the sighting was immediately listed on the eBird listserv. Love that listserv. And word quickly spread. Within a few hours, 40 birders had showed up hoping to catch a glimpse. The next day, there were 80 visitors, and over the course of 3 days, birders from as far away as Michigan, New York, and Washington State hopped on planes to capture the tiny celebrity on camera. Here's a little picture of the dark-sided flycatcher. It's a cute little bird. A little bigger than a hummingbird, it looks like, with a little needly type beak. Pretty cool. The Mountain View Voice spoke to Matthew Daughter of the Santa Clara Valley Bird Alliance, who said that the bird had previously never been spotted in the lower 48 states, and there have only been a few sightings in Alaska. He said the flycatcher likely took a wrong turn when heading south along its usual migratory route from the Siberian region to China or the Himalayas. And per the Voice, Google also took a part in the flycatcher's big welcome, inviting visitors to upload photos via a QR code. That sounds trustworthy. Okay. The company also provided parking and refreshments. That's actually pretty sweet. I kind of wish I was there. The last flycatcher sighting was reportedly on Friday evening, when birders speculated either moved somewhere else in the area or left altogether, per The Voice. Perhaps it gained enough respite to get back on its course. As a commenter on The Voice emphasized, protected spots like the Charleston Retention Basin can serve as sanctuaries for wildlife, welcoming unexpected visitors from far away. By preserving and restoring these natural spaces, we are not only supporting the species we already know, but we are also open the door to surprises. We also open the door to surprises. The images were by Kevin Shen from ABA Birds and the Birding Group on Facebook. Anyway. There's some comments here on this article. Splendid says, "Poo tweet." I have no idea what the fuck that means. Golden Gator said, "The bird's from Asia, so ice will be arriving soon." Cool, good joke. Reply for that says, "Quite frankly, I'm disappointed in the toxic masculinity. All these men getting together to look at some tits." That's not a bad pun. It's not a tit, it's a different type of bird, but that's cool. Then Jim Dyer says, "Not me, I went further south to look at some boobies instead." Alright, there we go. More bird puns. That's cool. I've been told repeatedly by naturalists, maybe they're just nudists, all invasive non-native species need to be blasted to oblivion, like a gnome spaniel. Alright. That doesn't make any sense. This bird is a gracious visitor. It isn't protesting U.S. immigration policy while setting flags ablaze. Okay. Sounds vaguely political. I wouldn't know nothing about that, though. And then Lupus said, "Humans are strange, hoping on a jetliner to take a photo of one bird, contributing to air pollution from planes that is, in turn, contributing to degradation of the birds' habitats." I guess that's a point to be made. Great. That was really worth it. Here's one more headline. Meet the Gruejay, a rare hybrid songbird. The cross between a blue and a green jay is a harbinger of environmental change. This is by Sarah Bowden at Science News. There was something strange about the turquoise-colored songbird flying around San Antonio in 2023. With its black and white tail bands and its jeering honk, it somewhat resembled and sounded like a blue jay, but it had the face and low two-tone rattling call of a green jay. The bird it turned out to be, quick aside, did not know the green jay existed. I gotta look this up. Just a second. Just one moment where I look up the green jay. What the hell is a green jay? Green jay. New World, Central America, Mexico, and South Texas. Okay, so I guess it's not really normally in California, but usually a little bit further south. That is a pretty bird, and I had no idea that it existed, but now I guess it's hybridizing with blue jays. So this is actually the first really interesting article I've hit in a while. The bird turned out to be an extremely rare hybrid that some are calling a Gruejay. I guess that's the name that you could make out of that. Genetic testing showed the hybrid bird had a green jay mother and a blue jay father, scientists report. How did they get genetic testing done? Did they catch it and hold it down and draw blood from it? Wouldn't be surprised. Guess you can do that. Though bird hybrids are not uncommon, a pairing between these two jays is remarkable as their ranges only recently began to overlap due to human activities, said Timothy Kite, an ecologist and evolutionary biologist at the University of Texas at Austin. The green jay, Cyanocorax incus, is a tropical bird. At the turn of this century, the only place they lived within the United States was the Rio Grande Valley near the Texas-Mexico border. The bird's range extends throughout Mexico and Central America, spanning as far south as Honduras. However, due to the warming climate, green jays have spread north by hundreds of kilometers and several degrees in latitude. And it happened quite quickly, maybe a 20-year period, Kite says. At the same time, the range of the blue jay, Cyanocida cristata, is reaching farther west across Canada and the United States, including into south to central Texas. Ecologists suggest blue jays are following humans into new areas, seeking rich food sources in suburban environments. Hybridization in the wild usually occurs between species that share a recent common ancestor. However, the evolutionary split between blue jays and green jays was at least 7 million years ago during the late Miocene epoch. The last common ancestor of humans and chimpanzees also lived around this time. I don't like that implication, honestly. They didn't really, I know they're comparing it to humans and chimpanzees could never hybridize, and they split off around the same time, but also that could be taken in the other direction, and I don't think that's something that we need in these trying times. The fact that two organisms which have been evolving independently came together to produce a viable offspring after 7 million years is amazing, said Jamie Alfieri, an evolutionary Jamie Guy Fieri. No. Jamie Alfieri, an evolutionary biologist who researches speciation at the University of Iowa in Iowa City. It's just a really long time. I don't know how else to say that. It's a really big number, says Alfieri, who is not involved in kite study. I wonder why not. Why a green jay crossed the species divide to mate with a blue jay is a mystery. Could have been that both birds were attracted to novelty. Okay. Kite says there have been instances where a new song type has been preferred among birds looking for mates. For example, researchers at the University of Lancaster found that a male blue tit, brought up the tits again, is more likely to hold a female's attention if he sings a unique song. Another hypothesis is that both birds were at the far edges of their ranges, unable to find a mate among their own species, pairing up was sort of last-ditch effort. Both strategies are a risk. Hybrids are sometimes sterile, though with birds, hybrid males are more likely to reproduce than females. Are more likely to be able to reproduce than females. The spotted Gruejay is male, so it's possible that it will have offspring. While both blue and green jays are highly social, the Gruejay appeared to be on its own. Perhaps the other blue jays in that area recognized that it was different and wouldn't accept it into their group. Bird racism. While Kite doubts that blue and green jays will merge into a new species, well, kind of seems like they already are, but I guess one hybrid isn't a new species. Okay. This hybrid highlights the unusual and rapid ecological changes occurring due to human activity. So buckle in, folks, he says. We're going to see very different outcomes. Lots of unusual weather and mixes of plants and animals we've never seen in the past. That's pretty cool. I like that. Subscribe to Science News and add $16 to expand science literacy and understanding. No thank you. Any comments? Nah, they don't do comments. Most places don't do comments, but I guess S-Fist does. So maybe I'll read other comments in the future because some of them are decent, and I'm hoping to find ones that are way worse soon. All right, well, that's bird news. So let's get right into, I could do a couple other recommendations. I guess, well, the book that I'm reading right now, I finally got into the Insatiable Volt Sisters. I'm only about 50 or so pages away from completing the book. Yeah, maybe about 100. I'm about 100 pages off. It's like a 450 page book, so pretty long, but a relatively quick read if you don't read the boring character development too closely. That sounds kind of okay. I'll admit that sounds a little bit harsh. Let me go back a little bit. So the book, The Insatiable Volt Sisters, it's by Rachel Eve Moulton. It was published in 2023, and it's basically been on my reading list since then because I saw it in the library, my local library in my hometown. I know, crazy, going to your local library. By the way, highly recommend that. Maybe even we'll have a broader topic on libraries one of these episodes in the future, because I think libraries are a very important resource, especially now when everything's so fucking monetized. But yeah, this book's been on my list for a while. Rachel Eve Moulton. She's the author of Tinfoil Butterfly, which is one I might have heard, and then this is like her second novel. And it's basically about these two sisters of a family with kind of a mysterious past that have basically ownership and stewardship of this island out in the middle of Lake Erie, and it's all kind of like mysterious what their role is, and they're supposed to maybe have like kind of paranormal powers, and there's some sort of it seems like a sinister force on the island that their family is pretty deeply connected with. I obviously know kind of generally what it is since I'm only 100 pages from the end, but I'm sure there's still going to be other twists, and I might get into that further on. But yeah, I'd say this book, it has it's fairly well written. I like a lot of the vocabulary and imagery. Um, it's all pretty cool. It's not necessarily my type of not necessarily my type of horror novel. It's very I usually prefer a narrative style that's a little bit more even non-binary, let's say. I don't love styles that really attempt to be gendered a bunch, because I don't think that's necessarily required in order to have good character development. It can help sometimes depending on what you're going for, but this is definitely looking towards more of I would say more of a female audience, perhaps a fan of kind of like sapphic literature. That's a fancy word for lesbian for all of you Philistines out there. And Philistines is a fancy word for uncultured idiots who just listen to podcasts. But I'm hoping to change you into book readers, maybe, or at least people who can, hold down a job and survive in this world of no one being able to fucking read. But yeah, it's definitely a more I would call it, if I was a kid, I would definitely call it a girl book, because it's very much like it's a very intimate look at a lot of these characters. And by intimate, I mean both mentally intimate and physically intimate. There's a lot of just like there's more descriptions of naked adolescent bodies than I would like in this book. Not a big fan of that. Especially when like there's a lot of instances of sisters just noticing how their siblings' bodies have changed, and it's not something that I really enjoy reading about. I don't feel like it adds that much to it. You could probably, I mean, I guess maybe it sort of ties into the rest of the book with like how close these sisters are, the Insatiable Volt sisters themselves. But yeah, I don't know. It didn't feel super required. Like some of the character interactions are very long-winded. Everyone's got like issues with somebody, and it's like I understand that how a plot conflict is supposed to work, where characters don't just immediately go the logical route and work out their differences in a straightforward way. That's how I try and deal with conflict in the real world. But obviously, in order to have extended conflict in a book, you need to not have everybody wrap up all their all their beefs and all their issues immediately. But that doesn't stop me from finding it a little bit annoying when it's just everyone just being constantly bitchy and secretive to each other. Like, fucking come on, dude. Like, who do you think you are? Like, I don't know. It's it's a whole thing. I'll probably get into it more at another point. Maybe a more spoiler heavy conversation, especially if I find a potential guest who has read this book as well. That would be interesting to talk about, because I feel like there's a lot to talk about. And yeah, I mean, yeah, so far it's like it's a good read. It's pretty fast. It's definitely interesting and has, like I said, a lot of interesting imagery. The characters are a little bit, I know that like characters don't have to be likable for them to be good. I get that, but oftentimes, especially when it's like, this is a book where it's like it's like horror fantasy essentially. It's horror fantasy semi-grounded in the real world, but like I'm not going to be reading so deep into the characters where it's like, oh, I really, really understand and really identify with these people. It's like, no, these are like horror characters. They're supposed to make kind of irrational decisions and stuff. But in a 450 page book, that can make a lot of the characters rather unlikable, which is what I've found so far. I've just been kind of being like, I just like, even in the beginning part where it's like there's like some stuff where it's like, oh, it's kind of sweet. Everyone's just kind of like annoying and like wealthy, but they don't even think about the fact that they're, that they're just like wealthy people. It's just like a weird sort of like modern day American aristocrat drama with like Lovecraft and like ghost story paranormal elements. And it's just like, yeah, I don't really give a fuck about I don't really give a fuck about all these island people whose entire job is to just fucking take care of this rather hungry island. Some might say it's insatiable. But yeah, it's just not really. It's pretty good. I'm going to finish it, but like the characters really aren't for me. I was definitely skimming at parts, and then having to go back and like kind of try and piece together what was going on. But like a lot of the character interactions don't really have much to do with anything, because there's then stretches of the book that kind of explain really what's going on. But like they really try and like hold back like the secret of the island for a really long time, and it's like 300 pages before you get like an actual good idea of what's going on. Like you can sort of tell what's going on, but it's like they just take forever to explain it, and or to rather to spell it out, and eventually they do just spell it out. Like I kind of thought that maybe they were going to keep the mystery of it a little bit more mysterious, kind of keep it vague, just to make it like, ooh, kind of like fear the unknown type of thing. Maybe we'll never figure out like what the real root of this terror is. But yeah, no, they kind of just get spelled right out. And now we're in the last 100 pages, and we're in the phase that I run into in a lot of horror novels where it's like nobody's on the same side, everyone's backstabbing each other, and there's evil they need to fight. They're not going to be able to combat the evil. Some of them are working for the evil, so it's like, oh man, how are they going to get out of this? And it's like, I know they're going to find some way to deal with it somehow. This doesn't give off the same vibes as something like The Deep, like Nick Cutter's The Deep, where it was just like bleak, and it's like, yeah, I don't know if this person's going to get out, and I don't really, and I don't really see why they would even want to get out with how much trauma and bullshit they've been dealing with in this book. This doesn't feel like that. This feels like people probably could get out if they could just kind of get their heads out of their collective wealthy asses, and be able to solve the problem. But yeah, it's I'd say I would recommend this book if you're. Actually, it's not even necessarily feminist literature. It's just very female oriented, a very female perspective. Definitely a lot of sapphic elements to it. A lot of girl crushes. A lot of girl crushes at varying generations, and a couple of weird quotes like age doesn't matter as much once you're adults, or something like that, which is I thought was a very strange quote, although it was from one of the more controversial characters, so maybe that was intentional to her character. But one of them does say something like that, and I was like a couple of things in this book, I was not particularly comfortable with it. But what do I know? I'm a fucking cis male. What am I supposed to take away from this? Other than the class element. Anyway, I'd still recommend it somewhat. It's not necessarily my personal type of book, but I could see a lot of people really enjoying this. It has a lot of accolades from authors that I know of, like Paul Tremblay really liked it. Believe I've heard of, who else? Rachel Harrison. Maybe Paul Tremblay was the only one I actually recognize. Maybe I don't read as much horror literature as I thought I did. Maybe I just read from the same authors over and over again. But anyway, that's what the point of the reading list is. So yeah, that's kind of my recommendation for Insatiable Volt Sisters. I might have a different opinion once I finish it, so I'll let you know on the next part of this mini series on finishing my fucking Shudder movies, which is what this is really about. So yeah, let's get into it. Like I said, I had a bunch of Yeah, I had a good chunk of movies to get through on my list, and then I continued to keep adding shit to my list. Like originally, the last one on my list was Black Christmas. But then after that, I added the pack, and I added back Ginger Snaps. Or no, yeah, I think Ginger Snaps was like one of the last ones on there. Or no, the pack was the last one on there. And then, yeah, and then after the pack, I ended up, or after watching Black Christmas, I realized that the same guy ended up directing, or he had directed a movie called Deathdream that was also supposed to be pretty weird and good. So I added that. And then after that, I added a Piranha because I saw that they had Piranha, and I was like, I've never seen Piranha before. Let's watch Piranha. Piranha we'll get to in the next part, I believe. But the first three that I know of, or no, that I watched, we can talk about here, because Piranha led into something else that was a source of madness, let's say. It was truly entering the mouth of madness, the mouth of Copacabana. But that's neither here nor there. Well, that's there. That's the next episode. But yeah, the first of these last movies that I watched after finishing Black Christmas, which I discussed in a previous episode, was Ginger Snaps. And this is a early 2000s. I believe this is in like right at the turn of the century, actually. I believe it was right in the year 2000. And it's about a couple of 2000, yeah. It's a Canadian movie. It's a movie basically about these two emo sisters in fucking Ontario. And one of them becomes, or one of them gets bit by a werewolf, and then it's kind of like them trying to figure out how to deal with this, and then also the process of going through puberty and like, you know, new desires and shit like that. Which is, once again, a thing that I'm not really all that interested in. I don't really identify with teenage girls all that much, and I don't really have a reason to care anymore about, at least not at the moment, about how things go for them in puberty, especially in a fictionalized horror setting. But that doesn't mean this movie was not entertaining and was not well made necessarily. I think that the effects are pretty cool. And the acting was honestly decent. It's campy. It's campy. Obviously, the two leads. Let me just pull this up. Yeah, Emily Perkins and Catherine Isabel. I believe Catherine Isabel, at least. Yeah, she's been in a bunch of other things. She's known as a scream queen, I guess. But that's just because she's in all the Ginger movies. I only watched the first Ginger Snaps, but I remember back when, because my parents are rather elderly, and they would still get a subscription to the local newspaper, and that meant every week we'd get the TV guide. And for all you young people who don't know what the fuck a TV guide is, it's kind of exactly what it sounds like. If you've ever been in a hotel and been forced to watch cable, it kind of just looks like the guide portion where you can just kind of flick through the channels and see what's going to be on and for how long and within what time frames, except it's in paper form. And I would notice, especially around like Halloween, they would do these movie marathons where they'd go through a series of movies. And one of them was Ginger Snaps. And there's Ginger Snaps 2 Unleashed, and Ginger Snaps Back, the beginning. And yeah, I believe that was the only sequels. They might have made some more direct to DVD type of things. Analysis. I'm trying to find franchise. Ginger Snaps 2, Ginger Snaps Back, the beginning. Yeah, it seems pretty crappy. Oh, October 2020, a television series was announced to be in development. I'll be honest, no idea what the fuck else they could squeeze out of this narrative, but I hope they have had a good time making that. But yeah, anyway, it's overall a pretty watchable movie, especially by the standard of teen horror movies. Although I guess this is more just a horror movie starring teenagers rather than a quote unquote teen horror movie made for like babies. Definitely decently gory and has like, a lot of really mature themes. It's definitely, it's more feminist than the other things that I've been talking about. Like it's more feminist, at least overtly, than the Insatiable Volt Sisters. There's definitely some like feminist subtext in the Insatiable Volt Sisters, but a lot of the characters do not really fall into that. A lot of it is just like everyone fucking keeping in tradition for like fucking profit and power and shit. It's kind of fucked up. But this one definitely has a lot of feminist elements. It talks about a lot of like literally a lot of the issues, and it all kind of revolves around, or rather it kind of uses the werewolf narrative and the werewolf mythos to kind of discuss the physical changes that women's bodies go through during puberty. And it's very it's very honestly interesting, because it's the plot, it keeps moving. It never gets like super slow. You are always kind of wondering what's going to happen next. You never know like how crazy is it really going to get. It's also decently funny. There's some good deadpan stuff. Like initially, basically in the first, there's basically a theme of just dogs just getting fucked up, which isn't really funny within itself. But when it happens over and over, and it's just, the people having these really just like over the top reactions, being like, no. And everyone's poor fucking dogs getting fucked up by werewolves. Like the first like 3 or 4 victims of the werewolf curse in this movie are just random people's dogs. Apparently werewolves really hate other dogs more than they love to eat people, which is kind of a funny twist on it, where they're just like territorial towards dogs. But yeah, it's basically like the plot is basically there's there's some strange creature that's attacking these dogs in the background in this suburb of Ontario, and and then in the midst of that there's these 2 sisters, and they're like really emo, and they have like this motto where it's like dead by 16 or out of the scene, or no, it's like, okay, hang on, let me rephrase. It's dead by 16. Yeah, dead by 16, or out of the scene, or dead in the scene. Basically it's either, basically they're saying like you either kill yourself before your age 16, or you leave the scene, as in like scene kids, like emo kids, or you're dead to the scene, where you're fucking lame. You're fucking lame because you didn't die and you didn't fuck off and become an adult, which I guess kind of makes sense, because do you really want to be a scene kid in your 30s? Not advocating for suicide. I'm advocating leaving the scene, the kid scene, because it's already called scene kids because they're supposed to be kids. Anyway, just food for thought. So I thought that little motto kind of worked, but it's also kind of dumb because they sort of think that they're serious about like wanting to die and stuff. They make these photo collages where they position each other to like pretend to be dead from various things, whether it's being like fake impaled on a fence, or like taking a bunch of pills or something, or like from cutting, and like crazy shit like that. And they like, in the first, the first after credits scene is them presenting this collage to their classroom for like show and tell or some shit, and the teacher's just like fucking horrified about it. So it's all kind of like, it's kind of like campy, like sort of edgy, but just like kind of sick tongue-in-cheek type of humor throughout a lot of it. But then it also has a relatively sympathetic story about kind of like, the culture of like expectations for young women, especially in the early 2000s, where there's a lot of emphasis in the culture about like girls need to put out more. Like, you don't want to be a prude. You want to get out there and have sex, even if it's with like the fucking gross fat Canadian boys in school. And it's like, it's fucking gross. And it's like, and it kind of addresses this in a way that's like surprisingly respectful. Like, it's not totally exploitative and disgusting. Like, it makes everything that's supposed to feel awkward feel awkward. And I think it kind of tells a story the right way, which is probably why this is considered kind of a cult classic. But anyway, I don't want to get too into spoilers here, but I don't want to tell you about who lives and who dies and how they figure it out. But overall it's a pretty good movie. I would actually recommend it. I would not return to my Shudder subscription to watch it again. But if you already have Shudder or what is it, MGM, I think, owns Shudder. It's either MGM or someone else, or AMC. It's one of those two that own Shudder. And so if you have any one of those, you could probably watch it. You could probably also just rent it somewhere, like on YouTube or something. This is pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. I was feeling pretty good about that one, and then I decided to watch what was then my last movie on the list, The Pack. And The Pack it had similar elements to Ginger Snaps. It had dogs and people getting chewed on by dogs, and like kind of a dysfunctional family. But also a lot of differences. First of all, the family's in Australia, and they're a bunch of like sheep herders out in freaking Australia. This time the dogs are the antagonists, rather than I guess just like collateral damage or innocent victims. And and there isn't really as much of an emphasis on any deeper themes other than family sticks together type of thing. This movie, honestly, I mean, it's like it's basically kind of was it direct to DVD? It has a direct to DVD feel to it, but it seemed like it was it was just released independently in Germany and Turkey. But I guess it was at a film festival, limited release in the US, and then Blu-ray and DVD release. Okay, so not quite direct to video, but pretty limited, not a super well-known horror movie. But yeah, it was in 2015. It was directed by Nick Robertson. Oh, by the way, Ginger Snaps was directed by John Fawcett, who went on to direct some other movies, and also the show Orphan Black. And he also directed the shittier movie The Dark. Or maybe it's not that. I haven't watched The Dark yet. I don't know if it's shitty. I think I was thinking of Alone in the Dark, which is a dog shit movie based on like a video game that was also pretty bad. Okay, anyway. The Pack, directed by Nick Robertson, who doesn't have a ton of other credits from what I can see. And it's about what you'd expect. It's a fucking pack of vicious dogs that attack a family and sheep and some other people in the movie. This was one that I was honestly, as soon as I kind of saw the first scene, I was already not really looking forward to it. First scene is like this, this old lady's waiting inside for her farmer husband to get back in. She like hears him shout, and then she goes out to the barn, and then she gets attacked by an unseen creature. Oh shit. That was like somehow hiding quietly in the barn, because that's how dogs work. Even wolves don't do that shit. Dogs aren't fucking sit and wait predators. They aren't going to hide quietly and then like jump out at you. That's not how they go. Also, it was in a barn full of livestock, so why the sheep weren't fucking freaking out and why the dogs weren't freaking out, no idea. Like, I'm pretty sure sheep are tastier than old bony Australian ladies, but whatever. It's just that you got to throw the logical consistency out the window. The acting in this really wasn't that bad. The actors didn't really seem to have a lot to work with as far as the script. It was a very basic plot backstory for the family. They're kind of down on their luck because their sheep keep getting attacked by wild animals, specifically this pack of CGI dogs that are enormous and look like wolves, even though like. I mean, you know what? Maybe it just happened that a bunch of the biggest, meanest feral dogs or stray dogs in Australia got together and became this super pack of fucking wolf dogs. Doesn't really matter the backstory. I guess the only thing is they come out of this rocky cave and they they kill a bunch of people. But here's the problem with this movie. It's the pack of dogs within the movie. The pack is like 6 fucking dogs. Okay? It's not 50 goddamn dogs. It's literally like 6 maybe 8 dogs versus like 6 to 8 people the whole movie. So it's even numerically, first of all. Second of all, people are people and they have a house and you think they could just stay indoors. But somehow, through some weird turn of events where they're like people, once again, this is a horror movie trope, they just keep checking outside. And through that, the dogs are able to like crash in through the door. And then there's a fucking dog in the house. And it's like, dog in the house? Hit the fucking dog with a chair. I mean, it's a big ass dog, but like, it doesn't take that much to make dogs fucking run off, unless they have rabies. I guess these could all be rabid dogs, but rabid dogs generally don't know how to wait and lay in ambush. So I think these are just fucking dogs. And at this point, the dogs, they shouldn't be hungry because they've been eating all the fucking sheep anyway. Anyway, let me go back a little bit. The family's down on their luck because the dogs keep eating their sheep. The dad doesn't want to sell the farm. The eldest daughter wants to get the fuck out of rural Australia, so she doesn't give a shit. The wife is kind of ambivalent, but wants to support her husband. And the boy isn't really part of it, but he like stole some of his dad's bullets from his gun, which then gets into the plot where this is 6 to 8 dogs I didn't really see and I didn't really pay attention that much. I skipped through a lot of this movie versus 6 to 8 people, at least 2 of which had guns. And it's like the dogs almost win. That's how fucking ridiculous this movie is. This is a part where there's a part they call the police, right? They call the fucking Victoria Royal Police or whatever. And they send a squad car out with a cop. And but the dad is like injured immediately, which is I guess why they kind of go so timid early on. But it's like this is a house, it has like lights and shit. It's not like the dogs chew through the fucking wires to cut the power. Although I think they might do that later in the movie because the rest of the movie is pretty dark. So it seems to me that maybe the dogs were smart enough to cut the fucking power on the house. But yeah, like they call the police. They're all bunkered inside. They're barricaded indoors. The dogs probably can't fucking get in unless they come crashing through the window, which I believe they do later on. Which is bullshit. Which is like, why? There's fucking sheep out there, dude. Just eat the damn sheep. That's the whole reason why these attacks happen, because it doesn't matter. They send a squad car with one guy, of course. That's another horror trope. Under-supported police officers. Police officers with no fucking backup. And it's like, the guy has a radio contact, but yeah, he's just like walking around there. And the family's like yelling at him from the house. And it's like, dude, you have a gun. He has a gun. We see his gun. It's there. We see the dad's gun. It's still there. Why don't you just go out and, firing any amount of shots should scare away any and all dogs, right? But these are super dogs. These are fucking super dogs. They don't care about gunfire. But even then, you are 2 grown men with semi-automatic weapons, or at least the police officer's weapon is semi-automatic. The dad's rifle is like a fucking lever action. So I guess he's got to like, God forbid, pull the fucking lever back to shoot another dog. But for fuck's sake, it's like 2 armed men versus 6 dogs should not even be a fucking question. But no, the family stays hunkered inside because I guess the dad twisted his ankle or some shit. Um, and then the fucking police officer's looking around, and then the lights on his car go off, I guess because they just automatically shut off or something. Or no, it doesn't even go off. It's just like the dogs are all outside of the light, and so the cop can't see them because I guess he doesn't have a flashlight with him or anything, or and the lights on his car, and he won't keep the headlights on or whatever the fuck. And the dogs all converge in on him, and it's actually kind of the only cool scene in the whole movie where you see just like the shapes of the dogs silently coming in from the shadows, and then just swarming this guy. And it's like, oh fuck, and it's like he fires off like one shot, and then he's overwhelmed by the dogs, and it's like, all right, fine. I mean, even though you'd think he'd probably be able to kill dogs, cops love killing dogs. Okay, maybe not Australian cops. I won't put that stereotype on them. But from my understanding, most police officers are pretty adept at putting down dangerous animals. That's kind of like what half their job is, especially if there isn't like an animal control unit in the town, which there wouldn't be in this rural area. There should just be everyone has like a gun or something and can shoot the most dangerous thing in Australia in the open bush, which is, once again, a fucking dog. But yeah, anyway, the police officer gets overwhelmed, and even though the dogs are like eating him, the guy with the rifle doesn't shoot any of them, even though it should be pretty fucking easy to do so. And once again, this is not like 50 dogs. This is like 8 dogs that are kind of big. And it's ridiculous. The rest of the movie is just them kind of running around the house trying to escape the dogs and like trying to get to the car and like get to a vantage point to kill the dogs, which should have been the fucking initial goal. Eventually the dad does get on the roof. I'm just going to spoil this because there's no real need to watch this other than for the filmmaking, which is like semi-impressive for the budget. But eventually the dad just goes on the roof and shoots all the fucking dogs anyway. Like, it's not, and then, the son comes back and like gives him the 3 bullets that were missing. And so now he can kill the final dogs before they eat his wife. And he literally just does what anyone would have done and found a high point with his gun and shoots all those fucking dogs. And it's like, you think they could just like wait in a fucking locked room or something with the gun to the door and just been like, we're going to wait till morning. If the dogs are still there, we'll kill them all because it'll be daylight. But something must have happened in there to make it so they couldn't do that, because otherwise there's no logical reason not to just hunker down. Or if you're, once again, you're feeling adventurous, go up to your roof and start popping those puppies. Anyway, this movie kind of sucks. It's fucking dumb. There's a similar movie set on like an island in Canada, and at least that kind of makes more sense because if you're on a mostly uninhabited island, then then it would be more difficult to get, say, police backup. But no other police officers show up for the rest of the evening. It's just the one who gets eaten by dogs, and then they just don't follow up with him. So yeah, whatever. Stupid ass movie. I don't really recommend this one, except for the idea that you would want to support independent filmmakers, I guess. And Australian film, it kind of shows the long way that Australian horror films have come. It was from like, there was one called like the Animals or something like that. Australia has a long history of having just like animal exploitation horror films. So they have shit like this. And then they've kind of developed their own, ghost story genre with those, the fucking Raka Raka brothers who made Talk to Me and Bring Her Back. So it's been a long road for Australian filmmaking. Oh, and the Babadook, of course. Holy shit, how could I forget about the Babadook? Also a good movie. Yeah, but it's come a long way. So I mean, I don't know. I guess watch this if you care about any of those things. But other than that, if you're looking for something that's not stupid, then don't watch it. But if you can get it for free, then get it for free, or I don't know, buy a physical copy on Blu-ray. Yeah. So and then the last one that I watched that night, I believe, or it might have been the next night after those two, because I believe I watched The Pack and Ginger Snaps on the same night, and then got sick of movies after The Pack because it sucked ass. But Deathdream is something a little bit different. It was by the same director of Black Christmas, director Bob Clark, and it starred a couple of like pretty well-known actors. Richard Backus, who's he's an actor and television writer, but he's kind of known for his dramatic stage work. And I've heard of him before. I've heard of Richard Backus. This is just happens to be a movie that he's in. So this movie, it's basically it's kind of like a modern for the time take on the monkey's paw, while also kind of like having some commentary on the Vietnam War and on PTSD. Because it's basically like, if you know how the monkey's paw works, it's basically like, oh, you wish for something and you get a twisted version of your wish. It's the same sort of thing that happens in like everything since fucking myths about jinn out in the desert, out in the Middle East with the Bedouins. And making wishes, and then it's actually because it's a demon, it twists your wish into something evil. But there's no demon here, at least not one that's actually seen or heard from in the movie. But basically, it's just about a mother who's really worried about her son in Vietnam. Her son is Andy, and the mother's name is Christine. Yeah, the mother's Christine. Andy has a sister named Kathy, and then a father named Charles. And basically he gets killed by a sniper in Vietnam. We're shown this in like the first scene in the movie. But like his mother is at home, and she's like basically just like praying for him and saying like, please, please don't let my boy be dead. Please, he has to come back. He has to. And then basically inexplicably, this is back when movies didn't really, the point wasn't to explain all of your magic systems in your world. It's just supposed to be like, something strange has happened. How do people react to it? And so it's just like, all of a sudden we see fucking Andy out there hitchhiking on a road just outside of town. And he gets picked up by this trucker, and and then the next scene, the trucker's fucking dead with his throat cut and is drained of blood. And it's like, oh shit, we're on our fucking way. And so basically it's like, yeah, kind of, there's not a ton of like crazy twists after that. It's mostly just the family slowly figuring out that, their boy is some type of like dead ghoul thing and not really their boy anymore. And it's just, brought back by some horrible twist of the wish by the mom, like a monkey's paw type wish. Monkey's paw curls, and it's like, fuck you, you get your son back, but you get him as a fucking walking corpse. Wah. But it's kind of more than that. It's definitely it has its share of filler, like a lot of low budget mid to late century horror movies have, where it's just like you have to have some other conflict going on, because you just can't have that many special effects. But the effects are good. They were made by, I believe, a relatively Tom Savini, famous special effects artist, and he's been working for a while. I believe he was in Dawn of the Dead. He did a lot of the later George Romero zombie movies, Friday the 13th, a lot of slashers like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, the remake of Night of the Living Dead. He's in a lot of things, and he's well known for his basically his really really cool work with prosthetics. And this becomes more important as the movie goes on, and Andy's facade as being a human being kind of starts to just deteriorate, and his deadness is revealed more and more, and it's honestly pretty cool to watch. Like if you like good zombie effects, that's Tom Savini's bread and butter. He's like, here's some fucking zombie shit. And yeah, it's not a crazy exciting movie. Like a lot of Bob Clark's movies, it's like a slow burn. It runs kind of slow, and kind of more fucked up shit happens as time goes on. All the actors in this are quite good. A lot of them are pretty famous dramatic actors, or later went on to have like relatively strong careers. I looked into a lot of them though. I particularly looked into the father and the mother, because they were, I mean, number one, they both played their roles very well. The father as being kind of like a, older, like the dad is like, okay, let's just get this out of the way. The dad, played by John Marley, looks way, way, way fucking older than his wife, who is played by Lynn Carlin. And this is this is like, it's very, very obvious. Like Lynn Carlin, she still has like brown hair. Like she has hardly any gray in her hair in this movie. And meanwhile, John Marley looks like exactly what he is, which is a old man with alcohol problems. And it's fucking wild. Yeah, his dad's name is Charles, and but I just think of him as John Marley because he looks like John Marley. John Marley, I looked him up, was a once again, he had played in a lot of like older movies. He was in a fucking, I believe he was old enough to be in like a Groucho Marx film or something, like some of like the old Marx Brothers movies. Or no, he was actually, he was in a lot of like crime and some comedies, but yeah, he had been in the movie industry since 1942, and he was born in fucking 1907. And this wouldn't be so crazy by itself. Like he's playing like he's playing like a guy in his fucking late 60s essentially, which is not, which is kind of old for having a son who's like serving in the army, but not like crazy old. Like maybe Andy is like a specialist or something and went to college. He seems like a pretty upstanding young man. So maybe he like went to college, or like partly went to college and then went off to Vietnam. Still makes the dad rather old, but the problem is that Lynn Carlin, she was born in 1938, which makes a 31-year difference in their ages, which is essentially fucking insane, because it's insane enough where it doesn't even make any fucking sense, or well, it almost barely doesn't make any sense. Technically, if she had, like, if Andy was like 20, if Andy is 20, let's say, that means that doing some quick math here, that means that she had him at 18, while her husband Charles was fucking 49. That's fucking horrible. I don't think that's entirely what was, like, I don't think that Charles is supposed to be that much older. I think that Bob Clark just wanted like a good actor that like he could get probably for kind of cheap, because John Marley was nearing like sort of the end, like the later stage of his career at this point, or it was like kind of in the end game of his career, where it's like you can play old men, and if you're playing a lead, you're gonna look fucking old. But yeah, I think that's kind of what he was going for. I think the age dynamic probably does come into play, because it does seem like Charles has like difficulty connecting with his children and with his wife. And so probably that age difference was meant to be in there. I just don't think it was meant to be that fucking drastic, because that's insane. Like that it almost takes away from the movie if you're thinking that this guy is 38 years older than his wife, and that like at best they had their kids when she was when she was like 18, or like the best case scenario is like she was 20. Like if Andy is like an 18-year-old who just got killed in Vietnam, but like this guy's wife was like maybe 20 when she had her kids, and then making him 51. And that's just fucked, to be honest. That's kind of fucked up. Like, listen, I know that the lady in the Insatiable Volt Sisters said that age doesn't matter as much when you're adults, but let's be honest here, it fucking does. Especially if, God forbid, they had met before they had kids. Like, it's something that literally was like distracting me in the movie because of how visibly old he was. And then I looked him up, and then it was like, I can't take this movie seriously, knowing this old ass man, but is just running around knocking up teenagers, and then having his son come back as a zombie from the fucking Vietnam War. But I tell you what, as much as that was kind of distracting, John Marley and Lynn Carlin, they fucking act the shit out of this movie. They go hard. Like, especially John Marley, he comes in. To be fair, most of what he has to do, especially after like the first 30 minutes of the movie, when Andy comes back and just strangles the family dog for no reason, is that he basically just has to act drunk and bewildered and like horrified and angry for the rest of the movie. And I think that's seemed pretty easy for him because he has that, I don't know, he's just got that face. He's got that alcoholic's nose where it's like, yeah, this guy was definitely drinking real alcohol in this movie. Like, he was not faking the alcohol. He was drinking like real whiskey and just fucking sticking it out for the scene. But still, like, a very solid acting job. Like, even though he was like, he's just this fucking decrepit old man in this otherwise relatively like youngish family, he showed like the feelings. He had like energy. He was running. Like, this guy was running. I know I talked about the running by that fat orderly in the Brain. That movie, The Brain, another Canadian horror classic. But this old man was fucking, he would run from room to room. He was running to get his fucking gun and like running out to the car and driving all crazy to try and find his son, and running over to shake his wife savagely and be like, "What the fuck is going on?" And apparently I looked into it. Apparently they liked Bob Clark liked the pairing of Lynn and John Marley as like a couple, even though I think Lynn might have been trying for a different role, but she ended up getting kind of pinned as the wife. But that was because they had such like hostility towards each other during like I believe just during kind of like the rehearsals and things like that, or like the line reads. And that's because I guess they had already had some history, because they had played like a couple. I think they played a couple or like had some sort of relationship in a different movie too. And they just did not like each other in real life. And so I guess that made it really easy for John Marley to practice fucking domestic and verbal abuse on this poor woman. Although not necessarily this poor woman, because this poor woman does end up kind of trying to hide and like deflect from the worst of her son's cannibalistic antics. So she's kind of also the villain in this movie. But like, it's kind of fucked up that the director played upon their inherent dislike for each other just to make the domestic scenes like doubly uncomfortable. So yeah, pretty crazy. Solid acting from pretty much everyone in the movie. It's a little bit slow, but it's a little bit slow and a little bit cliched, but it's a well-made film. This was definitely like one of the ones that was kind of in the original explosion of zombie era zombie films. There's still a lot of those coming out in like the 70s, the late 60s. And it also had a little commentary about Vietnam and about like it's kind of like using the zombie thing as like a metaphor for how a lot of these soldiers, they come back, even if they come back changed. So, kind of a not super subtle not super subtle way of looking at that, but it's something. It gives the film some artistic merit. So yeah, I'd say not going to spoil the ending, but it's pretty solid, and it picks up like a lot of Bob Clark movies. It kind of picks up at the end, even if there isn't a twist. There isn't like a twist or anything, or is there? Oh, I don't know. I shouldn't say anything like that because that also kind of spoils movies. But whatever. I'm still a semi-professional movie commentator, so you got to take it or leave it. But yeah, I recommend this movie. It is on Shudder. I don't know if it's on other things. It's also under a different name in. I guess originally theatrically it was called Dead of Night, not Deathdream. And I feel like that still doesn't make a lot of sense for what the movie is about, but I guess it makes more sense than fucking Deathdream. Still don't know why it's called Deathdream. I did some research on it. No idea. No idea why it was called Deathdream. Yeah, Bob Clark cast John Marley and Lynn Carlin as Charles and Christine Brooks based on their performance as a dysfunctional couple in John Cassavetes' Faces. Unbeknownst, yeah, it sucks that they had to play a couple before too. Lynn was only like in her like early 30s in this movie, and John Marley was in his late 60s, and so she was like in her late 20s in Faces, which is in 1968. And then fucking John Marley was still in his early 60s, which sucks. So, unbeknownst to Clark, the two actors did in fact have genuine animosity, which bled onto the set of Deathdream. So I guess it was unbeknownst to Clark, but I'm sure he could see it at some point. It was just like, wow, these guys are really playing up this role. This is a great scene here. Keep filming. Shake her harder. That's a direct quote. I heard that from Bob himself. I interviewed him when I was still a spirit in 1996. Fuck, I'm tired. Yeah, so recommend that movie, but that was not the last movie that I watched on Shudder. I kind of wish it was, but while I was kind of letting that thing run, or I think it was while I was working on notes for something else. But I was looking through Shudder, and I found that they had the original Piranha movie from 1976 or like 77, I think. Or it might have been 78. It was after Jaws because Piranha is meant to be a kind of like almost like a parody of Jaws, but just kind of its own movie, just like a knockoff basically. But Piranha ended up opening a whole other different can of worms that I would like to get to in another episode, because this has already gone on for, I guess I had quite a bit to say. It's gone on for about an hour 8 uncut. So we'll see what that is after the cut, or rather you'll see that. I don't really give a shit. But I think we'll save my commentary on Piranha and the subsequent madness of the Copacabana for our next episode. And if you're thinking, Michael, what's Copacabana? Or if you're thinking, I think I've heard of Copacabana, but he can't be talking about that Copacabana, can he? The answer to that is probably. Depends on which Copacabana you're thinking of, because this is a much deeper rabbit hole than you might ever think. But we'll get to that next time in part 2 of Michael cancels his Shudder account. I'll find a better title for this another time, but in the editing process. But yeah, thank you for listening. Come back for part 2, or aka episode 22. This has been episode 21. Make sure to check out the podcast at OTNT Podcast on Blue Sky, Mastodon, and Instagram. Once again, always open for an X account that I don't have to start up myself. I may be, once again, I'm probably going to work on a RSS feed soon so I can get some of the older episodes up onto the streaming platforms, or rather the the podcast streaming apps, everywhere that you get your podcast, blah 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 blah. And finally, had something else. Yeah, I think I'm I'm thinking about making some other social media. There's definitely some other places where I might want to put my stuff out, but that's neither here nor there. So you'll just have to take the updates as they come on Blue Sky, Instagram, Mastodon, YouTube. Yeah, feel free to leave a comment or email me at the business email with any questions. Business email is listed in my YouTube bio, or the company's YouTube bio. And yeah, that's about all. Reach out if you have anything to say. And thank you for listening. We'll talk to you later. Ah!